Great. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Throughout the talk today, we'll have questions or comments could be put in the chat, and then we'll have time at the end for those questions. So we thank you for that, and I'll be monitoring the questions. So John, if you could, next slide.
One moment.
Sure.
As we explained to people, we're having technical difficulties. I was going to share slides and they were all look terrible. So John has stepped in at the last minute to share slides. And
there we go. Is that good?
Next one, please. There we go. There we go. Thank you, John. So since we've moved to Zoom, which has been a long time now, we've fallen into the habit of taking a moment to remember that we are not just faces on a computer screen, but to ground ourselves in our bodies with our feet on the ground. So please join me in taking 2 deep breaths as we get ready to be together for this event. And these beautiful spring flowers were taken by Julia recently, just a couple days ago. To start tonight, my name is Marian Friedel. I'll be sort of moderating here. And first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that we are living on the land of the Ho-Chunk people who stewarded this land throughout the generations until they were forced to cede the territory in 1832. Sorry. So it's really fitting today that we are honored to learn more about the tribal ecological knowledge and the work of Honor the Earth in a few minutes with our speaker, Paul DeMain. So I think the next slide will just preview the evening briefly. So Phyllis Hasbrook will introduce our speaker, Paul DeMain, for today. And then, as I said before, we'll have questions and answers from the chat. Feel free to put your questions in the chat. After that, at about 7:45, we'll have updates and announcements. And then we'll have some optional, very interesting optional breakouts for everyone to choose if they have one that they'd like to attend or leave the meeting at that point is the other option, of course. Thank you, John. So at this point, I'd like to ask Phyllis to step forward. So thank you, Phyllis.
Okay, I'm very pleased to introduce our speaker for tonight, Paul DeMain, a citizen of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin and of Ojibwe descent. He lives near Hayward, Wisconsin, on the Oreilles Ojibwe Reservation. He was the Indian Affairs Advisor for Wisconsin Governor Tony Oreilles. He is the former editor of News from Indian Country, which was published from 1986 to 2019. He was a producer for IndianCountryTV.com and has received various honors for courage and ethics in journalism. He is currently the board chair of the Minnesota environmental advocacy organization, Honor the Earth. I first met Paul, I think in 2016, when I started organizing landowners and community members along the Line 61 corridor, which cuts diagonally through Wisconsin. I have never met anyone who gets as much done as Paul does. He is constantly thinking up new and creative ideas for how to educate and inspire those of us who want to protect the waters. He can give a history lesson off the top of his head, or an update, or an inspirational speech. Wisconsin is a better place to live because of the many fights that Paul has been a leader in. So please join me in welcoming Paul DeMain.
Okay, thank you, Phyllis. And I'm going to do a traditional greeting here real quickly. Bonjour. 1 minute.
1 minute, sorry, Paul. John, can you take your slides down? Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, John. I can see everybody now. There's all kinds of teeth. Yeah. Buju akina dinawe maganaduk Skabewis indigenicause. Mio ma nungum odawas gaiganing and dunjiba. Makwa indo dame. Abading Madeo. And all those other things that go with the traditional greeting when we present ourselves to the public. And so my English name is Paul DeMain. I'm also known as Skabewis. I'm a member, citizen member of the Oneida Nation and of Ojibwe descent. I am a member of the Bear Clan family. And I live at Odawazagai Ganingan Dujibai, which is the Courte Ojibwe Reservation nowadays. And was introduced with a whole bunch of titles, but my current situation is mainly conducting business for the organization Honor the Earth, which we'll talk about this evening a little bit as I go along. I'm actually going to use you all as an experiment tonight because I've been asked to actually make 3 major presentations in the next 45 days having to do with TEK, or Tribal Ecological Knowledge, the work of Honor the Earth, and how we utilize some of those tools in our work for functional achievements and sustainability, and maybe in some cases a lot of inspiration. So I think I'm going to get into this presentation of slides, which is actually kind of an accumulation of about 5 different PowerPoints that have been put together in different configurations. I'm going to jump in the driver's seat and see if I can't get that. I'd also like all of you, if you have a chance, to make sure you have a pencil and pen next to you. And if there's some mathematical people around, just keep a calculator nearby for a second, because I'm going to show you something in just a few slides that I want you to kind of confirm or work with. Be ready to take a screenshot of this if you need to, because there's some data coming up that you might want to capture on that. But let me see if I can't get my sharing going here, and we'll get into this slideshow and presentation, and I'll try to rush through that in the next 20 minutes. It's actually about a 4.5-hour presentation, but I'll try to move right along. So hit screen sharing and select the mode that has my slideshow on it and share that. And is that up and showing?
Looks good.
Okay, so now what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to move this over here just a little bit and see if I can't get to the real quickly to
Slideshow.
the slideshow here. Where are you, slideshow? I can see you there somewhere. Yeah, I got it. All right, can you all see that at the moment?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Yes.
So started there with just the earth. That's where we start. That's where we all live. That's what we need to take care of. There's a lot of things people do to the earth that they certainly wouldn't do to their front yard or all that other stuff. So we just got to make sure that we're taking care of that. These are some of the elders I worked with as a very young man. Pipe mustached man in the middle. His name was Omushkas. He was a 4th degree Madewin. He's the person that many people in this area at Courte went to for all their ceremonies. And Archie's off to his left here, Archie Mosey of Balsam Lake, which was one of the head chiefs of the St. Croix band, and well recognized as well. So I had a lot of time as a young man with these elders. Pipe decided that I was going to be his sidekick, and he would call me up on Friday and Saturday nights or something and say, we're going to this ceremony, I need a driver. And if I wanted to be out and around doing my own thing, that had to wait for later, because Pipe needed a driver and Pipe needed someone to take him places. And I had a chance to learn a lot of songs from them, a lot of the language. My primary language skills are in prayers and conducting ceremonies rather than conversational language. But it's important to understand that relationship to the language in this whole scheme of things. So let's see if I can get my slideshow to move and it's not moving. Why aren't you moving, dude? There we go. Seems to wanna. And so we're going to go. Slideshow is not working again. This is a scroll, and you don't see too many of them because many of them are buried deeply within the Medicine Lodge and our religious societies. You'll hear a lot about them, but some of them are very sacred. Really about 3/4 of this scroll, which has been adapted, and there's probably about 8 versions of it, and several of them have been online and in the public domain since the 1950s when James Red Sky gave up his scrolls. But it describes our relationship coming from the Atlantic Ocean all the way over to Leech Lake on the left. The Atlantic Ocean is actually over to your right side, and there's some dots there. Most of this scroll from the Atlantic Ocean over is a map. It's like a Grand McNally kind of map. And the other versions that have been created off of this map really are personalized mapping that show you other places where there's rice beds, where there's water, where there's artesian wells and so forth. The far side on the right is very interesting because it actually has the Atlantic Ocean in the middle of it, and then these 4 objects coming out here related to bear clans and the creation of the earth. So on that end, it gets into some spiritual religious teachings of some kind. And this scroll might take a full 6 weeks to discuss in the lodge every single day from the beginning to end. It talks about sacred places and what's there, and people would then pull up their memory to add to it, add to the narrative. And so, like I said, the study of this would take quite some time. All right. I'm not sure why my mode to move this doesn't work sometime, but come on, scroll. Oh, there we go. Found it. Here's what we're up against. When we look at scrolls, I think of this scroll here that shows all the dangers that occur with the pipeline industry. You see oil flowing out of the tar sands up in Edmonton and Hardisty and that whole area, and you see where it flows. You see that there is a pipeline. There was a project proposed called the Trans-Canada East Coast Pipeline over top the Great Lakes, which might have been an alternative to relocation of Line 5 if that project had gone. But there's projects in here that basically show the flow of oil into Canada and down to Texas, because most of the tar sands is so expensive that people in the United States don't buy it. On Line 5 alone, we only use a tiny fraction of the oil that runs through the United States and ends back up over in Sarnia and Westover and Montreal and those kinds of places. And most of the oil coming down, straight down into Texas. You can see that the Trans-Canada Keystone XL would basically just be kind of a shortcut across there, a little bit shorter and less time to flow oil. But this is the pipeline grid in the United States, the basic infrastructure of Canadian and US pipelines. Here's the exercise. And when I'm talking about TEK and things we do in Honor the Earth, this is something that I come back to again and again. So I want you to take some of the data here, take a screenshot if you want, but let's look at this. The common English language speaker is 20 to 24,000 unique words. Teachers, lawyers, doctors, 24 to 35, maybe 40,000 unique words. They're smarter and well-studied, and they got all kinds of phrases they can talk about that some of us don't understand. And then intellectuals have 35 to 50, maybe even more than that. So the top-notch word vocabulary in today's presentation is 50,000 unique words. Now I want to take you what Ojibwe, how it's created. In the Ojibwe language, we've identified 120 verbs and nouns. There's people that say there is more because much has been lost in the language, like a lot of other things. There's also 80 very well-used prefixes that change those verbs and nouns that stand by themselves. So the line down says 120 verbs and nouns stand by themselves. But now you have 80 prefixes to add to those verbs and nouns, and you get a number of 9,600. But then we also have suffixes. So when you take those verbs and nouns, you take your 120 verbs and nouns and multiply them by those 60 suffixes and you get 7,200. Then there's one more category. It's using the combination of all three. 120 verbs and nouns multiplied by 80 prefixes multiplied by 60 suffixes. If you got the mathematicians around and the calculators, that should come up to 576,000 unique descriptions. So basic words are 120, 9,600 verbs and nouns with prefixes, verbs and nouns with suffixes, 7,200, making 16,920 unique words. We're close to the English equivalents, but then we add the prefix combination and suffix and we get 576. So the number of descriptive things you can say in Ojibwe is 592,920 unique words with 235 utterances. So when people say how, when they greet an Indian, it's really interesting because in the Ojibwe language, there's probably a dozen different ways to greet people. And this is why the language is rich and why the language is bound to things like beadwork, the configuration and design of leaves, mathematical formulas that are pleasing to the ear, beadwork and belt work and weaving that's pleasing to the eye. It's because these combinations let us describe things in intimate, animate, and inanimate ways. So in other words, every time some society rubs out the vocabulary and language of another society, and they're proud that now they speak English or Chinese or Spanish, you're wiping out something that is a very definite tie to the earth and its descriptions that is very limited in the English language. And so when I look at traditional sugar bush pictures and everything, I always see inadequate descriptions of what's going on. Here's a treaty kettle. Here's Kiwiana Bay where we're syruping. I've got a sugar bush outside. All kinds of people do. Here's what we used to make. We didn't make pancakes. We didn't have glass for syrup, so we made sugar, which was easier to hold on to and was bound with other things like pemmican, your venison and wild rice and cranberries pounded up, wrapped in yellow birch because yellow birch has antiseptic properties that help kill bacteria and everything. And that's how we stored it and carried it around in those packages. So I could go get a nice 5-pound slab of pemmican with sugar and venison and wild rice and berries of different kind pounded into it and go into the woods for a week to go hunt for a couple deer for my family or to go hunt down the enemy, whatever it may be. I was well nourished with that provision. Here's what my great grandmother did in the Pinocchio Range. She went in on February 28th, tapped 900 trees with 2 adults and 3 kids. On May 2nd, she came out with 1,000 pounds. She sold at 16 cents, probably to rum brewers on the East Coast. She made $160, but she also kept 200 pounds of sugar for the family use. The poundage in today's rates for $18 a pound, and actually I sell pounds of sugar for 25 when I was selling my sugar, equals $18,000 for 64 days of work in the woods. This is the Ontonagon, Michigan report on sugaring by indigenous people up there, the Ojibwe in 1880. 248 pounds of maple sugar was sold to East Coast businessmen and other people up there at Ontonagon in 1880. Here's the prices, 214 prices at $55 a gallon, $1.7 million. 214 prices at $18 a pound. Actually, this year after the drought in Minnesota, pounds of wild rice are going for $25 a pound, but $18 a pound equals 4,460,000. You go into value-added products, candies and stuff like that, and that batch of sugar in Ontonagon, Michigan generated over $5 million if people were utilizing it. So when we talk about the importance of sugar, when we talk about the importance of wild rice, it's not because it's a cute little thing that we go out and tap and make a couple pancakes in the morning. It's because it's sustenance for the year. It's food at the table. It's part of our economy. This is a ricing field in northern Wisconsin. There's the Cucahoga Sloughs you've heard a lot about. they take out 40,000 pounds of rice or more out of that. At $25 a pound, you're talking about millions of dollars that goes into the household rather than have to run to Walmart and buy macaroni and white rice and Uncle Ben's and those kinds of things. Again, we know that people are hybriding wild rice by looking at the history of things. We know people are doing things with high bearing sugar trees because you find groves of high sugar bearing trees, and there's people that take a pride in making sure that they're leaving those high sugar content seeds for future generations. Here's the rice down in the front being dried out after coming off the lake after we harvested. We've got corn in the background. That's white flint corn. You see squash growing out of the bottom there. This is a corn, but this is a Three Sisters garden up there. That's corn, beans, and squash. The beans are planted inside. The squash is meant to give cover for the earth so it doesn't get dehydrated, and they all work with each other. The beans crawling up the white flint corn there. You only get one cob per plant though, which is unique of indigenous corn. Wild rice again. Oh geez, did I tell you that rice worms are highly nutritious when you fry them up? And this is why we get engaged in these activities, because we intend to save our wild rice and protect the Pinokies for both the sugaring trees and the rice and all the other medicines that come out of those areas, all the things we fight for. Here's what Enbridge transports. This is in Calgary, somewhere up there in Alberta, and 60 miles from here in the Cree hunting and fishing camps. They've had to break camps during the summer because the wind was coming from these tar sand pits, and the fumes in the camping village where people have these trap lines and fishing lines and wild rice products and everything. They actually have school out there. They've had to break some of these villages up and go other places because of the downwind smell of what's going on here. This is the result of the alleged need for tar sands. So we go back to corn, we go back to maple syrup, we go back to rice, go back to the TEK issue of the language and linguistics. Most people think about corn, around Thanksgiving when they get one of these little pretty things that's got all the color. The Oneidas have about 26 to 30 different types of corn. The Hopi have a dozen. The Sac and Fox have popcorn. The Oneidas have the white flint corn right in the middle, a great big nice ear of corn. You only get one per stalk. I was looking at some strawberry corn the other day, which actually grows and it looks like a strawberry. It actually has 4 or 5 different shoots that come out of the root system that shoot up, and you get 4 or 5 tiny little strawberry cobs that are red. Rowan White and several other people with the Seed Keepers Society, Winona LeDuc is involved in it as well on a regular basis, is identifying additional species and types of corn. Right now it's numbering around 700 different brands that were hybrid and operated. So for example, the Hopi have a low sugar corn for elders. They have a wedding corn that's a certain color that's only used for wedding. Most of they're known for their blue corn, but we have many, many different types of corn because we hybrided and developed it out, just like we hybrided the grass into a seed and hybrided it with Pembina Band, Red Lake, wild rice, which is a winter season. It's a shorter season. So you bring it into an environment down here in Wisconsin and it grows longer and bigger. But we know that people knew about hybriding because we have all these other products that's done. There's one of those ears of corn. There's more corn, the way we traditionally hang it up and braid it for storage until it can be taken off there and used for hominized and cracked and smoked and other things. Here's some ancient squash that came out of Ohio and the Potawatomis from a seed that Monsanto does not have, and you can't buy it in a farm book. These are huge 30, 40-pound squash by the time they grow up. They're not a Three Sisters squash. They'll stunt your corn by 2 or 3 feet if you put them in a corn crop. but very nutritious. And you take, you grow about, 15 or 20 of these, and you eat one a week in some way. You eat a meal of fish that you put away over the year. You eat a meal with wild rice, or you use that as a staple. You use maple syrup for your other products and mix it in. Here's what we face. These are all oil spills that are going on, that have taken place and already. And we know that it's going to happen again. It's only a question of when. Let me look at my clock real quick, since I don't have it on my line here. Okay, I got a few more minutes. Here's the Kalamazoo spill. So, we're looking at, oh yeah, this is Rusk County, just south of Story County. I can give you the coordinates to this, but this is Enbridge's largest spill in the state of Wisconsin, as compared to Kalamazoo in Michigan, as compared to up in Grand Rapids in Minnesota. This is just south of the Story County border. This is an area that's been entirely cleared. And if you could look closely, actually there's road tracks down there. Those are collection and aeration pipes that are sitting out. You can't see them in this photo. I can see where they are because I know where they are, but there's about a dozen aeration pipes and aeration types of thing. The creek is down at the very bottom. This oil spill started on top and came all the way down. I think it was in 1990 or something, but Rusk County. And these are the pipes that flow through there. These are the 4 pipes that run through the Enbridge corridor from Superior, Wisconsin, down to southern Illinois. The line on the right is Twin Line 66, which Enbridge will deny that they're planning on making, but it comes up. Line 13, I believe it's a little one over here, is a dualant that goes north to thin the tar sands. So Enbridge don't have to call it tar sands. They add a little bit of this and it thins it out and it moves in the lines easier. And then they can say, well, we don't transport tar sands, but it's thinned out tar sands. Deer meat, we're dependent on these things in our community. We don't just talk about it because it's a cute romantic idea. It's something that we're engaged in. When walleyes have mercury and FASA drugs or whatever, FASA chemicals and all these other chemicals that are going in, and you can't eat in, a treaty right becomes meaningless. And so I think what you're going to see is more rights of nature actions by tribal governments, and you're going to see some more forceful reaction in terms of how the state manages its resources at the depletion and at the risk of tribal fisheries. Here's Enbridge. This is line 4 on the Fond du Lac Ojibwe Reservation. Now it's supposed to be in the ground, but it's popped up over the years, and you can see the problem they have because you can see the steel corridor beneath the protective nature of this thing. And this protective coating is coming off in the Mackinac Straits. At La Courte, we've had 3 integrity digs. Bad River's had several. I don't know where they all are. We don't hear about them because the pipeline's in remote areas. But this is what's peeling, that's allowing moisture to get into the welding cracks and causing problems with integrity digs and deterioration and leaks. Mushrooms. Well, you don't know how many things are in mushrooms, but when you get off of mushrooms, here's what we're up against. So on the left side, these are all the banks that finance the DAPL construction, and they packaged it into Sunoco, Energy Transfers, Energy Transfer Equity, Dakota Access, and of course Enbridge bought a big stake of that pipeline in order for them to be able to complete it. And Enbridge gave up the Sandpiper line in order to invest in the DAPL line. Mushrooms again. Oh, there we go. Mushrooms here. If you eat enough of this stuff, you don't have to take Xanax or other antidepressants. So there's a lot of medicines out there that we don't even know about. What happens to our medicines when something like this happens? What happens to our food chain? Where does this go? It didn't just float away and get packaged into something. It went into the water system, it went in the air system. They almost had to evacuate the entire Duluth and Superior because one of these tanks down here, if it would have exploded and released chemicals, would have killed people if that chemical cloud had reached human lungs. There's my mushroom garden. In the woods. Those are oak logs that you put spawn into. Again, many, many different varieties of mushroom, wild onion collections. And we, in our organization, Honor the Earth, which funds programs in local communities in the United States and Canada funds these kinds of things with help of the Indigo Girl concert series. We re-granted over $100,000 last year to put workshops on traditional food workshops like this, seed exchanges, collections of seeds. We're involved in hemp projects having to do with cordage, with clothes, with hemp batteries, which actually, when you grow hemp, the inside cordage can be burnt and it creates a chemical that's like lithium. And so we're trying to encourage Elon or whoever to look at the hemp industry as a possibility. And we're also looking at the carbon eating value of hemp. So Honor the Earth is involved in a lot of projects, just not pipeline fights. It's because the pipelines and these extractive industry projects are coming into our backyard, and we feel compelled that we have to focus on that, fighting extractive industries rather than building our communities. I'm almost done. Hydroponics at Oneida. Here's a picture of the Bad River meander. If you look off to the right side, you see a dark ridge of trees in the upper right-hand side. That was the old river meander when Enbridge put in the black line marks where line 5 goes through. That was 180 feet from the pipeline. It's now about 18 to 25 feet from the pipeline after several big disastrous floods and 1,000-year weather events. And so Bad River, this is part of the reason that they said we want the line out of the reservation. And this is what happened that year, up billions of dollars worth of damage. This was a 500-year culvert that was created underneath this, only done about 3 years before this washout, when the 1,000-year flood came along, and we've had 2 of them in northern Wisconsin in the last 5 years. It washed out line 5 at Denemy Creek on the Bad River Reservation, and this is why we're asking people to get out on April 22nd, Earth Day, and just take a look around. You don't have to trespass on private property or call out cause the National Guard to be called out. This individual hunter was walking in the woods and he came along this and he says, my God, that's line 5 washed out on the Bad River Reservation. It's another reason that Bad River felt it was compelling to get that line out of there, because it was doing those kinds of things. We'd rather produce this than the tar sands. We think this is a project that is much more viable in the long run for our community. We invest in creating chefs now who are utilizing these foods to try to reintegrate an indigenous cuisine. Come to the June 25th, we've got Chef Brian Yazzie coming up to Ashland, Wisconsin for the communities United by Water, and he's preparing the food that day. We consult with our elders because that's where our TEK, whether it's stargazing, whether it's Winnebuju stories that go back 12,000 years, when that original scroll you looked at, it could represent 12,000 years, it could represent 50,000 years of knowledge that was on that scroll. But we really rely on our elders on a regular basis, and people like Linda Blackhawk here who are knowledgeable in medicines. We fed over 600 people at a conference for 7 days 3 years ago before the COVID came around, on all the resources that came within 60 miles of this meeting. And so we take people out in the woods and help sponsor them, kids and other things, and we sit around and chat about these things, and we learn from this, and we're learning how to feed our community locally. Okay, so there's a couple more of that, but here's the opposite end of it. Here's GTAC in the Pinocchio Range. This is Honor the Earth. That's one of their thermal solar panels that we have kids in training over in White Earth Reservation in a manufacturing firm. This is a solar project up in Alberta, Canada, because there's Indians up there saying, look, if Enbridge can do their dirty work, we'll do our solar work. So it's happening on reservations. Potawatomis in Wisconsin are at the lead of tribes changing over. Here's Enbridge, and I always like to kind of end with this. If you could see the whole thing, the beginning is near. So that's the end of my presentation today, because it's 7:38 and I've gone over 8 minutes. I'm sorry, but
that was great. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you. Thank you. If there's a few things in the chat, but if anyone has a question right now, please go to your reactions and raise your hand, and we'll be able to see you. And we'll wait for that. But one person had a request to see the oil spill slide again. And
Yeah, it's in the presentation somewhere there, deep down. I mean, if someone needs some slides, I got about a dozen slides that one of the elders from the Courte lifted from Enbridge when they gave their how beautiful the Kalamazoo River is again, and they had this pamphlet in the reception room that showed many pictures of the spill, and the elder says, "Good, we need this back home." So
that's
I've
right.
got a copy of it. If you need some, just email me and I'll send you a couple copies of those.
Sounds great. Thank you. Could you just say a couple of words about the rights of nature suits and just a little bit about that?
Well, there's a number of actions. They're not just all lawsuits. They are activities that people are engaged in across the world, actually. In fact, there's tribes in Peru and other places, and up in Washington State and Mohawk country. I watched a really nice rights of nature presentation about the rights of nature and what the Mohawks are doing with the St. Lawrence riverway there, which, the Akwesasne, where the Mohawk community is, where the people came from, talked about all the legends and all the stories and all the graphs and all the beadwork that, really dedicated themselves to the respect of the St. Lawrence Seaway. And when people started saying they remember when the river quit sounding, Akwesasne means it sounds like the drumbeat of a partridge, and it doesn't refer to hearing a partridge. It refers to the falls that used to roll and rumble in the distance and sound like a partridge drumming out. And so that's the story of the Akwesasne community that goes back thousands of years. They are looking at passing laws like manooment. And so there's several parcels to that. Number one, the wider tribal government council passed a rights of nature ordinance stating that the intent of it was to protect the integrity of wild rice as a food source, and that protection is both on the reservation and within the treaty reserved ceded territory of northern Minnesota and wherever Ojibwe people might reside. And there's rice under those treaties within those boundaries that started out, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, all the way over to Montana, Turtle Mountain, and up into Canada. Only half of the Ojibwe nation here was in the United States. So Manoomin was filed. It was a lawsuit called Manoomin versus Minnesota DNR, and it's bogged down in both federal courts and tribal courts and all the things that take sometimes weeks and months and years to resolve. And we're hoping that it's going to go to a place that's positive. But the basic theory is that if the United States Supreme Court can say that a corporate entity filed in Delaware on a piece of paper is a citizen, why don't all these other living things? I mean, I'd like to look at the GOP as the party that has a broad perspective about the right to life, but it's very narrow. It should be called the right to birth. And all the other things are left aside, like human beings are the top of the chain, when our stories say that the human beings were the last thing put on this earth, the last thing that was put on this earth, and we are dependent on everything else, and everything else is not dependent on us. And so whether the rights of nature, whether it's wild rice, or whether it's fish, or whether it's maple, tribes are trying to establish that these other living things have a right to exist. And again, with TEK and language, it's not like we just go out and talk to the wolves or the bears. It's because we've lived with them and we know the wolves and we know them. I mean, take this for example, where there's wolves, there's probably food. And so if you're a hungry Indian, you're going to go where the wolves are because the wolves are going where there probably is food. And if you learn how to share those food resources, if a tribal person takes down a moose or an elk or something, there's a likelihood that if he sees a pack of wolves, he's going to make sure that what he takes is what he needs, but he's going to leave something for the pack. So there's a relationship formed between those wolves. And there are farmers that have that relation. In 2022, on this day, I know farmers who have that special relation with the wolves. They read each other. They butcher something and those wolves know that they're going to get a part of it, and there they don't leave the yearlings and other things alone. And so you have to work with it. You don't put I complained about the bears eating 44 ears of my white flint corn a couple years ago. And I looked at my corn crop the morning after they did that. And I thought, yeah, they got back to me because I raided their blackberry bush that they'd been harvesting off for all their life. That bear clan was doing it. And I moved in here and started eating their berries, and they just got back at me. So that's an easy way to explain that. But Minnesota versus DNR is a suit that says, the state of Minnesota has an obligation, just like the United States, a trust responsibility to make sure there's enough water for that rice to thrive, because we have a right to the economy of it. And we have a right for the sustenance value of that. We reserved it in treaty rights for a purpose. It's not just for fun. And we're going to defend that. So that movement is going on across the country. Someone asked me, isn't someone in Wisconsin on line 5 going to file a lawsuit, like Manoomin versus Minnesota DNR? It says Manoomin's in Wisconsin. It's under the same treaty signed by the Ojibwe people at the beginning of this. They reserved the right to hunt and fish from Michigan to Minnesota to Wisconsin and all the way through. We don't need to file a second lawsuit. We need to make sure that this one somehow prevails, or another one in the near future. So I hope I answered somebody's question.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much. Kat Beyer asks about our community here in Madison and others in the state of Wisconsin, and what kinds of action or solidarity or work would you like to see us become involved in as support?
There's probably
along the
15
way.
to 20, or in fact, there's more organizations than that. Go Google Stop Line 3, Stop Line 5, go to the Sierra Club, go to Madison 350, go to the Universal Unification Church. Just Google it. There's 40 different places you can start at. And some people get confused when they start looking at it all and see what's all going on. There's environmental impact statements that have to be responded to. There are regulatory things. We've got people looking at thermal drone shots from our own drone shot. We need hydrologists and geologists and everything. I always tell people, do what you do best. If you're a good cook, come to Ashland again on June 25th and participate in the potluck feast up there. Add something. We have the main course taken down. If you're a photographer, take pictures. Go walk in the woods on April 22nd, like hundreds of other people are going to do, and observe that line, because 80% of everything found in terms of pipeline issues are found by citizens walking around. Oh, look at there's something leaking there. Oh, what's that gunk? I can smell fuel oil or something. Something's different here. And, report it to authorities, report it to local organizations and everything. But there's plenty to do, from letter writing campaigns, talk to your pasture, talk to your educators, make sure that this is a topic of discussion. Just don't do nothing. I don't like to hear about people who aren't doing anything, because I got 186 things to do. I keep pretty busy. So let one of them call me up, make an offer. I'll put you to work somewhere, maybe, if I have the time to respond to it.
And I think Phyllis will be having some suggestions for that as well a little later. But well, we just want to thank you so much, Paul, for being with us. We really appreciate it. And thank you again.
I didn't even get to talk about aquifer breaches, horizontal directional drilling.
Oh my gosh. Well, you'll have to come back. You'll have to come back.
Defendant charges. I want to make sure you know that. Look, there's a lot of people that are still going to process, over 1,000 arrests, maybe a couple hundred dismissals and resolved cases, but there are about 500 to 600 people still going through the courts. Please try to keep track of it, because it's a confusing thing. It's across 18 counties. Different jurisdictions, different groups of people arrested for different things. But if you've got friends and relatives up there, please try to keep track of them and support them. The Shell River 7 have a joint meeting tomorrow. There's going to be people going over there, but I know that there's some lonely defendants that get registered or something, have to come a long way and feel alone. So please keep the camaraderie together as that goes through the process.
I guess there's just, we just want to ask if there's anything else you want to tell us before you leave.
Geez, don't ask me that. I got all kinds. tell you, you want to see here's a poster for that June 25th session, April 22nd, Earth Day, go for a walk and observe, take a peanut butter sandwich and just relax out in the woods. Don't get don't call up the local sheriff and say you're going to go trespass on an Enbridge line and destroy it and have them arrest you and all that stuff doesn't have to happen. We've got plenty of pipelines to look. And then Saturday, June 25th, we have that large all-day gathering up there, and there's some people that are putting together a road cleanup along Highway 13 going south on the easement. And so it's kind of spilling over into Sunday and people coming up on Friday night. So it's spilling into networking, but really the day is an enjoyable day. Get together and talk to people. We've got food, we got music, we've got speakers, we've got entertainment, we've got traditional games going on. And it's really a time to really get together and know each other. So
Sounds great. Thank you so much again, Paul.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, Phyllis, for the introduction. Thanks, everyone. Everyone
Thanks, Phyllis.
waving, smiling. I feel so good.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, Julia.
Thank you so much, Paul. Hard act to follow. And I'm having a lot of Zoom problems. You all keep freezing, so I hope you can see me. We will have a breakout where Phyllis and Marion from our tar sands and climate justice teams will have a breakout with those that want to talk further with Paul. We know he's very busy, and so he may bow out.
I'm going to stay in one or the other.
Okay, perfect. John, could you bring up the slides, and I'll give you a clue, John. You're actually going to be the first announcement when you pull up the slides.
Sounds good.
You'll have to
second.
do two things at once: share your screen and then talk. But
It's
as
a
our
deal.
executive director, I'm sure John can do it.
Okay, is that, let's see if slideshow. Julie, how am I doing? Does that look good?
Perfect.
Okay, wonderful.
And
Now the next trick,
slide
like,
will be yours.
and there we go. Yeah, so I am really excited to announce that we are in the process of becoming 350 Wisconsin, and we even have a draft of a logo to go along with it. This name change will be fully effective later this month as we celebrate Earth Day. In part, the change reflects that we are already doing statewide work, which ranges from addressing, what Paul was just talking about in terms of the tar sands oil pipeline expansions up north, to influencing state level energy and climate policies. So we also anticipate that this will allow us over the next several years to engage more individuals and communities around the state in 3 activities and support. There are many opportunities in Wisconsin for taking action on climate change, and we want to help build and be a part of this momentum. Also, this shift from 350 Madison to 350 Wisconsin is also kind of parallels increased statewide foci that are being done by other 350 organizations around the country. So, and we'll be glad to have more conversations about this shift in focus and the renaming to 350 Wisconsin during a breakout room, which will be taking place shortly. So I think we can just kind of forge on, and I look forward to more conversation either after our time here or at some point in time in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, John. And if I can have you do your slide roll, the next slide will be an opportunity to hear from Stephanie, who has the challenging job, good job of helping us raise the funds to support this work.
Thanks so much, Julia. I'm Stephanie Robinson, 350 Madison's Development Director. And this is such exciting news that John just shared with us, and a real milestone moment for 350 Madison. And so I'd like to start by saying thank you to all of you for making this happen through your commitment, your passion, and your support. And we are very, very grateful. So in celebration of this transition to 350 Wisconsin, we are running a fundraising campaign for Earth Day. And we'd like to invite you to be one of the first contributors to 350 Wisconsin, either as a one-time donor or a recurring donor. We are just very grateful for your support. There are some special benefits of becoming a recurring monthly donor. And that's especially important as we expand further and become more of a statewide organization. It enables you to provide resources to manage long-term campaigns and respond. It helps us respond to new opportunities, to strategically expand and innovate. And it supports strong action to combat climate crisis, whatever your recurring donor amount. And finally, you get the peace of mind of knowing that you can make a difference every day without even having to think about it. So we hope you'll help us make 2022 our most impactful year yet, with more staff, strong campaigns, ongoing training and volunteer opportunities, effective advocacy, partnerships, and more creative actions. So thank you so much for considering a contribution to 350 Wisconsin. And you can do that by going to our website, 350, well, for now, it's 350madison.org/donate. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Stephanie. We're gonna shift to Phyllis, who leads our tar sands team, and you already introduced Paul. The next slide, John. Phyllis will say a little bit about, tar sands and related issues.
Yes, because of many people working against pipelines across the country and other things. Can you go back there? There is a movement afoot by the right wing to make it a lot harder and more difficult to protest. And John, can you move that back to the one? There we go. And so we were very worried about SB 296, the riot bill, but thank goodness Governor Evers vetoed it. It would have endangered anyone protesting and punished people as rioters merely for being at the same protest as someone else who committed violence or even just threatened to commit violence. So we really have to keep aware, because this is part of a nationwide trend. And there's a short article in the upcoming newsletter that will take you to this website, US Protest Law Tracker, where you can learn more about what's happening in all these different states. So that's all for that one. We can go on to the next slide. Okay, tar sands team update. EPA tells Army Corps that Enbridge plan is dangerous. This was pretty amazing. The EPA on March 16th wrote a letter to the Army Corps of Engineers, which is the federal entity that is charged with safeguarding the navigable waters of the United States. And they said that Enbridge's plan may result in substantial and unacceptable adverse impacts to the Bad River and Kakagan Sloughs complex. And this, the sloughs contain the largest natural wild rice bed in the Great Lakes. And it's very important that it continue and stay healthy so that they have good genetic diversity of wild rice. This, the sloughs have many, many fish in them, including muskies, northern pike, rock bass, pumpkin seeds, bullheads, black crappies, smallmouth bass, and yellow perch. And they also host migratory runs of trout and salmon. And so there's a lot of food there that would be covered with oil if Enbridge puts in the Line 5 expansion and it bursts. And it would go through 186 bodies of water through or under, and all of them drain into the sloughs and then into the lake. So that gives you an idea of just how important it is to stop it. And the EPA wrote in their letter that they have concerns that the introduction of excess sediment that comes from the construction, even before you would have a spill, fuels, lubricants, and drilling fluids into tributaries could flow into the sloughs. And that's referring to those frack outs, that there were so many frack outs in northern Minnesota as Enbridge built Line 3, And a frack out is inadvertent release of drilling mud and whatever chemicals. They keep it a secret what they're using, but they often do use chemicals too. So that's what we're dealing with here. On to the next one, please. And this is what we're doing right now. We're getting more comments to the DNR. April 15th is the last day you can put in a comment, and this is very important to show the DNR and the governor that this state is against this. And Enbridge is working hard, putting their money to use, sending out gazillion of these postcards and online ads, very deceptive ads, saying line 5 equals lower gas prices. Give me a break. But here's what we're doing, and you could be a part of it. We're tabling at Willie Street Co-op. We have 2-hour shifts between noon and 7. Friendly people eager to sign comment postcards, and you'll be with a buddy. And we've done it twice so far, and we have 7 more arranged, and we could do more than that if we get more volunteers. And the first time I was there by myself, and 2 hours, I got 59. And then the next time, 3 of us got 81. So it's really worthwhile. We're also doing phone banking. And if you don't like to be outside or you live far away, you can be a phone banker, and we train you. And here's the statistics on what we've done so far. You can read them yourself, but I'm very proud that 1,798 calls were attempted. And there was a total of 1,118 who heard our message. And so you could be a part of the last 2 that we've arranged. So there's my email. Just contact me and we'll get you to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Next slide. So this, as you've seen, as we talked a month ago, we are participating in the March 4th to Earth Day project, which has been 5 Fridays so far, 3 more. It's located throughout the state. If you're not in Madison, you might want to check that Facebook page and find out where the action is in your community. Here in Madison, we're meeting at the Library Mall on 5. Oh, that says March. Who wrote that slide? April 8th, 15th, and 22nd.
Oops.
And this was the students are doing a lot of the UW students and 350 Madison folks. A lot of us get together, and this was a die-in that was on a cold day 10 days ago. And I think the next slide might show something warmer last Friday.
Okay, am I on, Julia?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead? Yes, you are.
Okay, hi everybody, I'm Diane, and I'm speaking on behalf of the 350 Madison, soon to be Wisconsin Art Collective. So this is a picture from our most recent March 4th to Earth Day event. And we really, really want to encourage anyone who's able to join us. We have 3 remaining, as Julia pointed out. It's a great way to support the student groups and really help nurture the next generation of activists. And they are so excited that we're there. It's just really, it's very fun. It's another way to get more postcards to the DNR signed opposing line 5, because we're using that as another place to educate and get some actions for that. And it's fun. They've had free food. This past week they had DJ from the UW student radio station, and they're going to continue to do that. And it's we've had art builds there, different things that the art collective has created are there, and some other projects. So it's really an uplifting it's an uplifting experience. And this is so important for us all, I think, to continue to recharge our batteries. So it's not only a way to really support the student groups and building unity who envision this, but it's a way to come and play together. And I think that is really very, very important. Along those lines, one of our art collective members, Richard Jones, just recently, who just whips off these amazing things kind of all the time, made these wonderful prints about with a blank area. So it's a place you can draw, collage, whatever. And then the rest of the print is "Want to Stay Alive." So whatever it is that you feel called to represent, you could take one of these prints and you could create your own project. And we're offering those at the next 3 Fridays, but you can also, Richard also tells me people are welcome to stop by his studio, Studio Perron, his incredible art studio, which is 2051 Winnebago Street. So we have different ideas of, you know, there's a lot still in development, but about postering them, putting them all along State Street, all sorts of things. But there's a lot of good opportunity there. So we really encourage people to come for that. And then going on, so wow, there's so much exciting stuff going on with 350 right now. On April 22nd, which is Earth Day itself, as you know, and April 23rd, there are some very joyfully rebellious actions that are being planned. Okay. One of them is going to happen on Earth Day, 5 p.m. at Library Mall. And we're really not only inviting, but encouraging everyone who's available to come, to invite their friends and family. The more, the merrier. There are going to be some fun and funny things happening at Library Mall. Then we're going to have a jubilant procession up State Street to the Capitol, where there'll be some speakers that the students are arranging. But we really want to create a spectacle. People are welcome to dress in costumes as human or non-human beings. That's completely optional, but that's certainly something you can do. There's a role for everyone, whether it's to hold a banner, wave a flag, wear a river critter hat, or just come along for the ride. Okay, so we're really hoping to have some big numbers. On Saturday, we're going to meet at the farmers market. We think it's going to be around 10 a.m. and there will be more details to follow. That's why my email address is up here right now, because if anyone is interested in attending with any role at all, we would love to hear from you. The reason being, these things can be fluid, the planning for these sorts of actions. So if we know that somebody's interested and they want to come, it would be great. And then I can keep you up to date on what's going on, or if there's a location change or this, that, or the other. But, you know, going back to what, can I say one thing real quickly? What Paul was saying about all the rights of nature and all the beings that deserve to stay alive, this is what we want to embody in these actions. So thank you.
Thanks, Diane. We have a few more announcements before our breakout. So next slide, John. I think this is Russ's announcement. As soon as I see the slide, I'll know it's another slide from the March 4th action on Friday.
Actually, this is related to the Stop the Money Pipeline campaign, April 2nd to the 10th. And it's about these amazing posters that were sent out around the United States. 20,000 of them were sent out, and we need 350's help in finding places where we can put them. They're huge. They're 8 different panels that go into making one. They're 3.5 feet by 5.5 feet. And we've mounted some onto plywood. We've mounted some onto fabric that can be attached to something. And we've got some that we think we can just wheat paste directly onto a vacant building or a fence on a construction site. But really, we need your help. We need to know where we can put these. So I put my email in the chat, just bennett.russ@gmail.com. You could even put them in your yard where we make them into kind of a teepee and shed the wind. And it would just be great to get these out there. We want to support these 8 artists that made these 8 completely different, but all amazing posters. Thanks.
Thanks, Russ. And if you can see, that says Stop the Money Pipeline. I think most people on this call know that we're trying to stop the flow of money from banks to Enbridge, which then builds all these pipelines. The next slide, we here at 350, particularly our Divest and Defund group, has been involved with the Chase campaign for a while. And as the next slide shows, we're also involved, the Stop the Money Pipeline is doing a big campaign called Wall Street's Moment of Truth, People or Fossil Fuels. And we're participating in many ways, you know, the Stop the Money with the big posters, the actions in front of Chase. We'll be doing more of those. But if you want to know what's happening around the country, there's a digital campaign rally tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central Time. Speakers include, I may not pronounce her name correctly, Nemo Iquita of the Confederate of Indigenous Nationalities of the Ecuadorian Amazon, Roysheta Ozan with Healthy Gulf, and Third Act founder Bill McKibben. So you can check that out tomorrow night. And stay tuned, you'll be hearing more about Madison-based actions to stop the money pipeline. Next slide.
Julia, I'll take this if that's okay.
Yes.
Thanks. Kermit Hovey here with the Community Climate Solutions team. And as you may know from our name, if nothing else, we are focused on finding climate solutions from local communities. And so that means we think it's important to get out the vote. And that's why we're putting in a little plug and reminder for the fact that tomorrow is an election day for a lot of different local offices. And these are people that kind of make changes happen at the grassroots or ground level of your city, your village, your county. And so please get out to vote. Please remind people to vote. The vote411.org website is provided by the League of Women Voters to give you candidate statements to help you have a somewhat informed decision. And so thanks for supporting our democracy and supporting our climate solutions work by getting out to vote. Also, just want to put in a plug for a mini film festival coming up this Thursday, 6:30 to 8:30 thereabouts. And it's featuring a mini documentary about a climate justice course that Noemi Lisacher, one of our CCST members, a high school student, was involved in starting, and also another documentary, The Ant and the Grasshopper, about educating people on climate change. So that's a free event, and we want to encourage people to support our high school students and get out into the local community if at all possible. Julia.
Thank you, Carmen.
Okay, is somebody else lined up to do the next one? The Earth Day every day?
Yes, next slide.
Okay.
So did you want me to talk about that, Julia?
Yes, that would be great, Carol.
Okay. Well, we're really excited about the idea of hosting a relatively large event that people can bring family, friends, neighbors, everybody to be sort of this one-stop shop festival where you can learn about electric vehicles, you can learn about different solar installers and different ways to fund that. You can learn about how to get, green team started at your church and how to get your church involved if you, or faith community, whatever you go to, things to get kids interested, games, different organizations, including 350 Wisconsin, Sierra Club, the local community things on buses and things about electric bicycles and things about electric lawn equipment and, activities you can do at home that are going to help protect the environment. And so we're just trying to make it a fun sort of festival thing where people can come and get educated and get inspired. We'll have a drawing for a free electric lawnmower. If that is something that interests you, there'll be food, there'll be ice cream, there'll be free popcorn. Trying to work out a petting zoo for the kids. Just, a way to have fun and bring people to get educated.
Thanks so much, Carol. That does look like fun. So many things to do on Saturday, April 23rd. I sure hope people can join. I don't know how you'll choose between the disco dance and the melted craft grilled cheese food truck, but as Paul said, do something. Next slide. I think this is the final. I'm having Nikki, our volunteer coordinator.
Yes, hello. So we have our volunteer of the month, and today we are recognizing Ava Wingren, who is here today. If you would like to wave.
I'll say something so my video pops up for people. Hi.
Yeah, there you go. Hello. So just a little bit about her. So Ava came to us and volunteered to co-lead the phone banking that Phyllis mentioned for Fighting Line 5, for gathering more comments from the DNR. And she has done a tremendous amount of work planning phone banks, writing scripts, training volunteers, and also doing many shifts herself, while also answering a bunch of volunteer questions. So these phone banks would have never accomplished as much as they did without her help. She was a part of 19 two-hour phone banks. She led at least 5 of them, participated in more, and say that, the total number Phyllis mentioned, but she was highly involved in so many of those. So thank you so much, Ava. We really, really appreciate all that you contribute. And we are excited to keep working with you in the future. If you would like to join Ava as a volunteer, if you're not already currently involved, we have a newcomer breakout at the end of the meeting. For people who are interested in getting more involved, I will chat with you then to talk about what potential volunteer opportunities you'd be interested in pursuing.
Thank you, Nikki. Now, I think my last slides going to encourage people who, if you're a newcomer, we welcome you. There's so many ways to get involved, including coming to these meetings and hearing our speakers. We do a lot of things in teams. So the tar sands team, the climate justice team work together on this event with the monthly meeting team. And you can see that we have a lot of meetings on Monday nights. If you're interested in joining any of those teams, please just contact the leaders. They can give you the Zoom link. The next slide shows that we do have meetings that are not on Monday nights. Other teams, the Community Climate Solutions team, which has a lot of things going on, meets on the 3rd Thursdays. Just contact Susan Millar. You've already gotten the email addresses for Russ Bennett and Diane of the Art Collective, but there they are again. Stephanie can use help with fundraising. I can use help with the monthly meeting team. And I should acknowledge Marion and and Kelly, who are, of course, we drafted John for this particular meeting, are part of the monthly meeting team. And our newest team, the state policy team, I'm sure Gail would be delighted to hear of people who'd like to join that. And the final slide before we turn to breakouts just lets you know what's coming up on these main public meetings. Monday in May, the first Monday in May, we'll be hearing from Scott Conan, with the Wisconsin Conservative Energy Forum. And that meeting is brought to you by the state policy team, working with trying to get bipartisan action on some of the state policies. On Monday, June 6th, we will have our annual meeting and some of the more about 350 Wisconsin and other issues, as well as our elections. And then Monday, we won't meet July 4th, but Monday, July 11th, we'll have our summer picnic. For those of you in the Madison area, we'll be meeting at Brittingham Park. So now those of you that still have some energy to talk in smaller breakouts, the next slide shows what the 3 breakouts are going to be. And I think Kelly's going to set up those breakouts.
Yep, we'll get them set up in a moment.
Kelly will set those up. And so if you're a newcomer, just hang out in the main room. Nikki would love to chat with you and tell you a little bit more about us. If you're not a newcomer, if you can, there'll be these 3 breakouts, more on what Paul DeMain was talking about, and Phyllis will be in that breakout. More about civil disobedience with Diane. And if you have questions about 350 Wisconsin, both John and Gail will be in that breakout.